Happy Sunday, risers. We're back with another round of hashtag Rising Qs. Oh, boy. We're going to answer some of your questions that you asked us on Twitter. So, Ryan, what's the first one?
Let's see. This question comes from I Miss Carlin. Does Ryan Grim see any possible correlations between the Bunk Project Veritas leak versus the Oversight Committees releases? And so, first of all, on the Bunk Veritas, it doesn't mean that that was not an official DARPA memo that was written by this fellow. Like, I think there's credible evidence that this particular fellow that claims to have written this memo for DARPA did write the memo. The question is, does that take on then the weight of DARPA? Is it a DARPA memo? And I think people can understandably come to the conclusion that no. Not everything that everybody employed by an organization, like if somebody that works for Nike writes a memo, it doesn't make it an official Nike memo. You know what I mean? The timing is coincidental. I saw a lot of people who were like, "Wow, so the Project Veritas had this story about DARPA come out, and then a couple hours later, the House Republicans confirmed that was true." They were completely different situations. The House Republicans were focused on getting the full contents of emails that organizations like BuzzFeed and like The Intercept, where I'm an editor, had been suing the government for a very long time, and had gotten only redacted versions of. And the House Republicans were able to, because they have extra privileges that the media doesn't have, they were able to go in and look at the actual documents and then write and then kind of take notes on what the documents said behind the redaction. And so those are the different things that are going on there.
I haven't even looked into, people have been talking about this, the Project Veritas DARPA leak or whatever. I haven't even looked into it, so I don't even know what it is yet, but.
Right. Let's go.
Interesting.
What's the next one?
All right, so the next question. Caleb asks, how is no one talking about the OSHA mandate, the Supreme Court case that will change America forever if it passes? Well, I think we're still waiting on the opinion from the Supreme Court. So we have talked about it. I think we're just waiting on the opinion. I was actually going to talk about it on a radar earlier this last week on Monday, but I ended up falling sick with some sinus stuff, so I wasn't here to go over what the Supreme Court arguments were. I did listen to the entire, to the sessions. When they do come out with the ruling, I'm definitely going to be talking about it on my radar, at least. I'm sure the show will be talking about it, but it doesn't hit on the aspects you think. That's one thing. One big takeaway is the question you think of whether or not you have the right to decide for your own self is not the question in play, but that's a longer subject for another day. But we just are waiting. We're in a waiting game. And I kind of expected them to have a ruling by now, but they haven't.
Yeah, if they were going to stay it, I thought they might stay it extremely quickly.
Yeah, I thought so as well, but they haven't. So that's interesting. It's very interesting. But last question here. Juan Reyes asked, how does the left rationalize such glaring contradictions as abortion on demand with vaccine mandates, or voting without ID but requiring private medical information and ID to participate in society? P.S. Kim rocks. Oh, thanks. Personally, for me, I don't know. I'm a pro-choice person, totally pro-choice. I'm pro-choice when it comes to I just believe any medical decision I have, from whether I want to carry, a pregnancy to term, whether or not I want a vaccine, all the way to whether or not I want to end my own life. I believe that is between me and my doctor and no one else's business, certainly not politicians. That's my take on it.
Right. I think on the second they have an interesting point, and Democrats have basically, I think, folded on voter ID. If there ever is any kind of bipartisan, voting rights and election integrity legislation that goes through, Democrats are going to capitulate on the question of voter ID.
Of an ID, really?
Yeah, I think so. They basically already have caved to Manchin on that. Now, if they could get a filibuster carve-out, they'll put voter ID in there as the price to get Manchin's support on that. And he's right that it's very difficult for them to say that you have to show a QR code to get into a restaurant, but you don't have to show anything to vote. Like that does get hard to maintain. On the first one, it's a public health question. There's no there's no contagious aspect of pregnancy. And so I think that is where it distinguishes. Like this goes back to a fascinating case called the slaughterhouse cases from the post-Civil War, during the Reconstruction era. I'll try to tell this story really quickly. So in New Orleans was known as like the city of cholera, the city of death, for the entire first half of the 19th century. People just died constantly there. And it turned out that the reason that people were dying so much is that there were a ton of slaughterhouses just north of the city, and the slaughterhouses were dumping all of their pig entrails and all of their guts right into the Mississippi, and then people were drinking all the pig gut. Like the water that was coming up from the ground was completely infected with the decomposing remains coming from these slaughterhouses. And so the Reconstruction government that came in after Civil War said, you know what? You can't have a slaughterhouse north of the city that's dumping pig guts into the water anymore. So they shut those slaughterhouses down, and they created a slaughterhouse district that was south of the city. You want to do a slaughterhouse? Great. We want you to have a slaughterhouse because we love pork in New Orleans. We all enjoy this. But just throw your pig guts down here so that we're not drinking them. Cholera in New Orleans evaporated overnight. Like, it was done. They cured it. Though they then sued, the slaughterhouses sued and said, this isn't fair. It is our right to dump pig guts wherever we want. We are American citizens, and they cited the 14th Amendment. They said we have equal protection under the law here. Corporations are people. This is where the corporations are people argument comes from, and it is our right. The government cannot tell us where to dump pig guts, and it doesn't matter if it causes cholera. That's your problem. Don't drink the pig guts. And people are like, well, I don't have a choice. If you're dumping pig guts into my water, I have to drink it. And so that was eventually overturned. And for decades, you had this era of just complete libertarian rule in the United States where anything went. You want to dump pig guts? Dump them wherever you want. We overturned that in the 20th century and said, no, the public does have some ability to restrict your freedoms, your rights, if there's a public health implication. And so that's where the distinction comes in. There's a public health implication here. Then you start arguing about, well, how much does it stop? How much does it slow the spread? Because obviously vaccines don't stop the spread. We still have spread. And so the question becomes, does it reduce the spread enough to facilitate a mandate or to back up a mandate? So that's how I would say that the left can believe those two different things, because one is a public health question, the other is an individual rights question.
Well, that does it for us. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we're going to see all of you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you then.